Actually, I kind of want to continue the conversation because you made a comment about how, well, you're just a nobody and that Philip and I could do it. You're the one that has all the power, and you've already started this process. You said you talked to the legislators. And here's the thing, I think.
I remembered. I was like,
Yeah. No, I'm serious. Like, if it happens in Frederick County, it may be the first county in Virginia. Well, well, so now you're in another county, but but what you've got left, the people who are back here, you could still, anyway, it's the man in the street, it's the woman at home. You guys are the ones that have all the power. So Philip and I go up and we meet with legislators and staff members of congressmen and stuff like that. And they're all like, oh yeah, we'll listen to you. Of course, you represent Christian schools and that's what we do. It's a whole nother world when Minta Hardman shows up and says, Mr. Klein, I live in Winchester and I run a school with X number of people and I just might talk to them about what happens.
He couldn't come today, but he came and spoke to our students in September.
Yeah.
And he told me that when I was at one of those summits.
Yeah.
He said,
So,
I need to come to your school. I said, yes, you do.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the things we encourage our schools who come to, we do the annual legislative summit. We encourage school heads to invite their legislators over and don't talk politics. Talk about how great the school is and the impact that a Christian school has in the community. Why Winchester, would be bereft of real value if Mountain View were to shut down, right? And if the mayor, who isn't an atheist, but if the mayor is a secular, Marxist or whatever, there's good reason for Mountain View to be in this city and making a difference in this city and county. So, and every Christian school has that message. So you don't have to talk about all the politics and stuff. And I would encourage schools especially not to do that. And I do need to say one nice thing about Ben Klein is he's a co-sponsor of a federal school choice bill. And I'm supposed to update you on the federal stuff. So, but at the state level, keep fighting. There are delegates who actually did want to repeal the tax credit scholarship, which that's going to leave 4,000 kids without scholarships in the schools that they've chosen to be in, and most of those schools are religious schools. I do want to be able to say, sorry, I'm going to toot our horn a little bit, but ACSI, in fact, I'll even toot my own personal horn. When I first started in 2012, the tax credit scholarship program had just passed, and I called Philip and I was like, we need to start one of those scholarship organizations at ACSI. And so Philip whipped up the legal work, and ACSI created the first scholarship granting organization, is what they're called, SGOs. So I would encourage you, there are 33 SGOs that you could donate to, but I would encourage you to donate to the ACSI Children's Tuition Fund. So if you can. So yeah.
We had $5,400 worth of scholarships we were able to give out through that this year to
awesome.
our students.
See, that's awesome. That's, I think the program is the greatest thing since sliced bread. So, and so I get excited about that. And yeah, I wish it was 100% match. So if you gave $1,000, you should get $1,000 tax credit, but I'll take $650. It's still a benefit to the donor, and of course it's a benefit to the kid, and it's bringing the children out of the public school system and giving them an opportunity. So that's at the state level, and so my own time is ticking away, and there's a lot of federal stuff to talk about, but I think I'm going to focus on the Educational Choice for Children Act. It's a federal tax credit scholarship bill. So the one that we've been talking about was Virginia's EISTC. The federal one the bill is called the Educational Choice for Children Act, ECCA, or ECA. So if you don't mind, I'll talk about ECA. And it works the same way, except it's at the federal level. You'll be able to give to a scholarship granting organization, and you will be able to get a tax credit of 100% off your federal taxes for your gift, right? And there are limits and yada yada. But that's the fundamental point of it. And then the scholarship granting organization will give those scholarships to kids anywhere in the country. The great thing about ECA is that in states that don't have any school choice, now there will be a federal program. So kids in New York and California will actually be able to get scholarships through this program to go to a Christian school or whatever school they want to, Jewish, Catholic, whatever it might be, Muslim, whatever. People are saying, well, what about states that already have a school choice program, like Virginia's tax credit scholarship? If this federal bill passes, then you can give either to the state program or to the federal program. So it expands the number of options. And so if you want to give to the federal program, you'll get 100% credit for your gift off your federal taxes. If you give to the state program, you'll get 65% off your gift on your state taxes, if that makes sense. And the Children's Tuition Fund and all the other ones like them will take that gift that you've given and provide a scholarship for a child. So I think these are really great. I do have issues with federalism, like education is supposed to be at the state level. It's not supposed to be something Congress works on. They do it anyway. It keeps me employed. But the fact is, this bill is, even though it's not a federalism issue, this bill is ideal because it deals with the federal tax code. So it's, of course, a federal bill. It's a legitimately federal school choice program without meddling in the state level stuff. So now how are we going to get this bill passed? Because even though Republicans have a majority in both House and Senate, majorities are kind of tight. And in the Senate, of course, the parliamentary procedure generally means you have to have 60 votes. Republicans don't have 60 members, they're 53. And so we're just not going to get that bill through in a freestanding way. So for the last couple of years, people have been talking about, well, if Congress does a reconciliation bill, then it could be included in the reconciliation bill. Has anybody heard that term, reconciliation bill? I thought you might have, because it's in the papers right now. My phone is blowing up. The House passed its reconciliation bill on Monday or Tuesday. We had our little team retreat on Tuesday, so it really, you couldn't do this another time. But anyway, they don't listen to me and care about my schedule. The great news is that on Tuesday we found out that ECA was included in the reconciliation bill. The reconciliation bill is and I'm sorry to do this to you, but it's a parliamentary procedure, it's a process that allows both houses, the House and the Senate, to pass a money bill with a simple majority. You don't need 60 senators. You just need 51. So there are 51 Republicans. So the Republicans are all excited about that. The Democrats did the same thing. I don't know if you remember, but anyway, they both, of course, they both do it. If they get a majority, it's the one way they can actually successfully get stuff through, but it has to be money bill. So Tuesday we were thrilled. ECA was included in the House reconciliation bill. It is a huge thing. It's what we were working for. We're completely thrilled. The bad news is, one of the delegates, I think, mentioned sausage making. Yeah, so as the sausage was being made, they changed our bill, and not for the better. In fact, substantially not for the better, so I'm pretty peeved. So, and again, they don't care that I'm peeved, but the fact is, the bill, what they did is they cut the amount of money set aside for the tax credit in half. No, not in half. In half, from 10 to 5 billion. They took out religious liberty language that, for us, is critical for this bill. And then they also said that there could be no corporate donations. That was a problem. And then almost as bad as or worse than the removal of the religious liberty language, they also put in language under the IDEA Act. This is the federal bill by which public schools are required to serve disabled kids. And they said that, and they put in a requirement that private schools would have to serve disabled kids, but out of their own pocket. Well, of course, that nobody, and as I've told many members of Congress and staff, our schools want to serve disabled kids. We would take them in a flash, but we don't have $100,000 to invest, in making that happen. We really want to serve these kids. The public schools have, and I'm sorry, this is going to be controversial, but in my view, public schools have unlimited funds. because the school board can pass the taxes on to you. So you have those unlimited funds, thank you, and me. So of course that's an exaggeration, but it makes the point that we can't do this out of our own pocket. So the week has been spent urging the House, could you please go back and do it right? The House is not interested. They're going to vote on Monday. So all the effort is focused on the Senate. So we've been reaching out to Senate offices, and I've been getting texts from, we have a new director for public policy who's with me on the Hill now, and she has been texting me, this is, and she was like, while you're there, I'm going to set up a few meetings. I hope that's okay. I'm like, yes. And she has access to my calendar, and I keep saying, well, there's another one, there's another one. So you can be praying for us. We're not the only ones that are upset. The Catholic schools are freaking out, and of course they're kind of the 800-pound gorilla. So the bishops are huge. The Jewish schools are, also, any religious school is not happy about this. None of the private schools are. Even the secular private schools, usually the secular ones are kind of the highfalutin ones that are charging big money for tuition and things like that. Even they are not willing to do that out of pocket. So that's kind of where ECA stands right now. Woohoo, we got the reconciliation. Oh no, we got. So it's been an emotional roller coaster. So you can be praying for next week, because we've already started reaching out to Senate offices. We've also been talking to House offices, and yesterday we had a meeting on the House side urging the congressman to call the Senate. Is he talking to any senators? Yes, and he was, and we gave him some tips and things like that. So that's kind of where ECA is. So on Monday the House will vote it out, and then the Senate will have to do its deal. The Senate could take the House version, or they could come up with their own. And we're like, do your own, guys, do your own. Please do your own and use the original language of the bill. So that's our strategy. Don't tell anybody. So anyway, of course, it's like everybody knows that's what we're going to do. The religious liberty language, I think sometimes the secular school choice organizations, they're all excited about school choice. Or yeah, but if you don't make sure that religious schools can participate, there's not going to be a choice, because if Mvca says I'm not taking that money, then there is no school choice. And when it comes to the private sector, 10% of all kids are going to private schools. Of that 10%, 80% choose a religious school. So it's us and the Catholics and the Jews and the Muslims and all, they're all religious schools. 8 out of 10 parents choose them. So if the Christian schools won't participate, and our schools are the most hesitant, and rightfully so. So I did have a chat with one of my rabbi friends, and he was like, George, he goes, I don't know why you get all excited. I hope I might have this in my thing for tonight, but he says, when people start talking about sexual orientation and gender identity, we just tell people that we teach Talmud values, and everybody leaves us alone. I'm like, oh, well, great. We tell people we teach biblical values, and they set their hair on fire like we're hateful, evil people. And I'm like, maybe we Christians should call them Talmud values. Would that work? So anyway, of course, he understood and where we were all coming from, but yeah, it's the biblical values. It's the faith part that bothers the secular, our secular friends. One other thing that's in that reconciliation. Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Let me know.
Yeah. We've got supper. Obviously, they're starting to serve at any time, but and we can go all the way up to 5:45 for eating supper.
Okay.
So however much time
Yes,
you feel
right,
like you
right.
need to breathe in between
No.
there.
Well, I thought also as a matter of prayer, the other thing that's in the reconciliation bill, the House version, is a return of the so-called parking lot tax. I don't know if y'all would have heard of that, but back in 2017, when this tax reform bill first passed under Trump #1, we kind of had to beat that back. Under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in 2017, this tax was passed for all nonprofits, including churches. And what the tax was is that if you provide a free parking lot for your staff, that you had to pay you had to like determine the value of parking of your parking lot. So I don't know if you can do that, but and then allocate however much you think the value is of the parking lot, and then if you let your teachers park for free, then you have to pay a tax on their benefit because they get to park free. Anyway, as you can see, it's completely crazy. And we beat it back last year, and it was all, and the big thing about that was it's a church tax, right? And you can't tax churches, which was true. It was like, it's not just a talking point, like this is the reality. This year what they did is they said, well, not churches, but all the other nonprofits. And so now I'm like, okay, some of our schools are under a church, which I think you guys are, so you're off the hook. But down the road, they might be, my kids went to Fredericksburg Christian. It's an independent school, has a parent board, and so FCS would be,
Share,
tax.
if you will, a little bit, because I was blown away by this, where you guys were sharing at the summit where they're trying to pass, I don't know where it is at this point, about how the being non-exempt would, what was it? Something about, I need my notes, but that churches, any religious organization, that tax exemption could be considered. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yes, I do.
About being
Yes, I do. Yes,
yeah.
yes,
Yep.
yeah.
Explain that to
Well,
them,
so,
because that blew me away, and I know.
yeah, yes, that's another one. Well, so, but just to tie up UBIT, unrelated business income tax, and the parking thing, we're having to fight that again. And of course, one of the main reasons there is a reconciliation bill is because the Trump tax cuts are expiring, and if they don't pass it, then the taxes will go back to pre-2018. So anyway, so that would affect all of us, right? So that's why we have to fight this parking lot tax again for regular nonprofits. So that's the other thing. So the bill that you're talking about is the Safeguarding Charity Act. Yeah, and we've been working on that for a while. What happened was that came out of a situation where, let's see, how can I summarize that?
Quick, I know, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
no, it's
6 minutes, you got it.
I got 6 minutes. So, Christian schools want to avoid receiving federal money. So there are all sorts of ways to do that and still participate in federal programs. So that's just sort of the groundwork of that. There were 2 schools that were sued under the whole Title IX situation. That was the Girls in Sports Act. So, of course, both of those schools were Christian schools because, of course, we believe in male and female, and because we're crazy, right? So those 2 Christian schools, one was Lutheran in Baltimore, one was a Christian school in California. They were sued under Title IX, and neither one of them receives federal money of any kind. And in both of those cases, the judges said, well, you're a nonprofit, you're tax exempt, and therefore, as you don't pay taxes, you're receiving a federal benefit, and you are tied to it. So I don't know if that made sense, but it was the most breathtaking, outrageous, nutty thing. And boy, was that, of course we're all frosted about that. So in the California case, they settled out of court, and so that legal doctrine went away because a judge didn't actually rule on it. In Baltimore, the Lutheran school, the judge said, yeah, that's it, it's over. So the Lutheran school appealed to the Fourth Circuit, down the road here in Richmond, and the Fourth Circuit now is very left-wing. So it's kind of the new, in the modern era. Back in the day, it was the Ninth Circuit in California that was super left-wing. Now that's transferred over to the Fourth Circuit in Richmond. Woohoo! The Fourth Circuit actually said, no, that's crazy. No. The Lutheran school is not a recipient of federal financial assistance just because of its tax-exempt status. So we have, said, this is crazy. 2 judges on either side of the country at the same time. Where did this come from? Other than, hell itself. I mean, just come on, people. So we talked to members of Congress, and so there's legislation that just, and what does it say? if you're a nonprofit tax-exempt organization, you are not receiving federal financial assistance. Boom. And that way, none of the judges can be confused. Although, as you know, I mean, they'll be confused anyway.
But has that passed?
It has not passed, and so that's still on our priority list, and I was going to bring that up. So anyway.
Lots and lots of things to pray for, but encouraging to know there are people fighting for it in our state, in you know, our country.
And I just want to say, our goal at ACSI is to let your school thrive. We want it to be as authentically Christian as it possibly can be. And your school can decide, you can decide whether you participate in a federal program. My job is to make it possible, if you want to make it the least risky it possibly can be. And then, because we're always doing memos to school heads saying, all right, here's this program. If you participate, this is the risk of federal financial assistance. You know, you might want to think twice, or yeah, we think you could actually do that. So, and then you can decide. Some of our schools, many of our schools, are just like, no, we're not doing that. So, and many others are like, yeah, sure, we're all in.
And I'm like,
so,
and
so, and actually, I think, you know, that I feel like that's pretty responsible. Like, in other words, if there is something where you can, you know, but you do have to always remember that.
You have to be true to your mission.
You have to be true to your mission, first of all, and you know that the rules can change. And like the delegate, one of them said, the rules can change anytime. So, and you can ask our schools in Illinois. They had a school choice plan. It wasn't like the tax credit. It was a different school choice program. And the General Assembly of Illinois was just like, yeah, we're going to repeal that. And suddenly, you know, schools that had scholarships that were funded are no longer funded. And so now what do we do with the kids? So if your school took 100% of those kids, now nobody's paying tuition. You know, if you took 10% and you're prepared, you might be able to roll with it, right? So anyway, those are the kinds of things that can happen. So.
You guys have been great.
Yeah,
you guys
thank
have
you.
been great.
Yes.
Hope you're going down to eat. I know it's going to smell amazing and it's going to be delicious. But let's go ahead and be back up here.